So we are going to talk about short rows today, and again, in terms of thinking about whether or not something can be replaced, we're going to talk about German short rows versus wrap and turn short rows, which probably have another name, but I don't know it. But I consider them short rows and then German short rows. So why we use short rows, just as a quick little reminder, is anytime we want like a little wedge in our knitting, a little elevation in one place. So a short row is essentially you work across and then you turn and come back, and then work across, turn and come back. So you get this little either triangular wedge or even round shape. So this is a little sweater I'm working on, and so I've got a nice shoulder shaping from short rows. And then this is a sleeve cap that's also done. The entire thing is done in short rows. So you get that really pretty sleeve cap without doing all of the crazy seaming that you often have to do with sweaters. Now, short rows don't always have to be purely functional. Sometimes they can also be really, really pretty. And that would be this. In this case, this is a Barry Klein pattern where he uses short rows to create these lovely sort of eyes in the middle of a shawl or all the way through a shawl. So all kinds of lovely ways of how to use them. So similar to increases and having to think about whether or not you can use a German short row or short rows, when you use wrap and turns, I'm going to say wrap and turns in short rows and German short rows. When you use wrap and turns, they actually have you work up to a stitch and then wrap that stitch, where German short rows don't utilize that stitch. And that is the main difference between the two. So let me just do a real quick demonstration. I have separate videos on how to do these things. So if you need the really slow instructions on how to, please know that they're separate on YouTube. So I could even throw a link in. So oftentimes in a wrap and turn, it'll tell you knit 4 and then wrap and turn. So I've knitted my 4 stitches on my needle. And then to do my wrap and turn, I bring my yarn forward. I slip that stitch purlwise, take my yarn to the back, slip that stitch back, and turn my work. And when I do that, I have this stitch on this needle that's been wrapped, and then I'm just going to purl back. So I'll work on my purling back. And then it'll tell you to work to 2 stitches past the wrap, picking up the wrap, right, and then wrap a turn again. So I'll just do one more little guy. So I would knit up to my wrap, which you can see right there, that little A, there's always a gap tooth set right between where your wrap stitch is and the other ones, and your wrap stitch is always to the right of that gap tooth. And then to pick up that wrap, I'm just going to come into the wrap, into the stitch, pick it up, and you can see it's sort of a nice looking wrap right there. And then I'd work my 2 stitches right past and go ahead and wrap and turn again. And then I would go ahead and find my wrap right there. If you're new to wrap and turns, and I do say this in the actual how-tos, it is advisable to go ahead and mark those wraps so you can easily find them. Once you get used to it, you actually don't really need to wrap them because you have that nice little gap tooth area. Okay, so really important, what I'm showing you on this is that when you're counting your stitches, you would have worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches and wrapped that 8th one. When you do a German short row, on the other hand, so I'm going to go ahead and work past these and sort of like start a new little wedge so we can see the difference between the two. Again, just to pick it up, I'm going to come up into that stitch, come through both of them and off. Okay, so for a German short row, it would tell you like knit 3, and then do your German short row, which means you are going to turn your work to the other side of your, work. You're going to slip that last stitch worked, and then you're going to take your yarn quite tautly over the needle to where that 1 stitch now looks like 2 stitches. And then bring your yarn to the front and you will purl back those 2. So in this case, I would have knitted 3 stitches. This third stitch right here, the one that is actually our German short row, is both the third stitch that was worked and the stitch that we turn on. So if you are working a pattern that calls for one technique over another, you would have to do an adjustment in your math. To pick up this wrap, I simply get there, knit into the middle of that stitch, there we go, sorry, into the middle of that stitch, come through, and then you can see that short row is just hanging out right there. Some people have like really strong opinions that it looks so much better than a wrap and turn. I don't know that I see a huge difference between the two. So I'd go ahead and knit 3 stitches again, turn your work. I think it's a matter of A, preference, B, convenience, and C, what the pattern tells you. So I'll slip that stitch, pull it heavily over my needle, right, and then purl back. Okay, and then coming back, put a weird spot on my knitting. I would see then, right, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was both my 6th stitch that was worked and the one that was pulled up for your German short row. And to pick up that German short row stitch, I just come in, do those double stitches, come right into it, come through, take it off, and it's done. So my wrap and turns, right, look like that, right there and right there. And so you can see a little bit of a loop around them. And the German short rows are, you know, maybe a smidgy less noticeable. Both very nice, both really good. Honestly, I don't really have a strong opinion about either one. I think for many people, the German short rows are just flat out easier to do. You're not searching for that wrap. It's very easy to identify, that sort of thing. So play with them and see which one you want to do. But just remember, if you are replacing one for the other, a wrapped stitch utilizes that extra stitch that's going to be wrapped, and the German short row is sort of inclusive in there, right? So this, if you're knitting 5 stitches, wrapping and turning, this will use 6, this will use 5. So hopefully that was clear. All right, good luck with your short rows. And again, if you want more information, I have 2 videos separately on each of those short row types. It has all the information on doing it both ways. And if you like the videos, please subscribe and share, and we sure appreciate it. See you next time.